Welcome to Michigan Out of Doors. I'm Jenny Olson, and as some of you may have noticed, I'm a bit of a fan of the Stormy Kromer hat. They're made right here in Ironwood, Michigan. We're going to go on a factory tour and show you what that's all about and hear some of the history of this awesome company right here in Michigan.
We are always excited to spend a little bit of time above the bridge, and actually all of this week's show is going to be from the Upper Peninsula. After we spend some time at Stormy Kromer, we're going to spend some time with the DNR. Our own Jordan Brown was recently up there doing a story on the Predator Prey program, and that looks at the entire population of the white-tailed deer across the Upper Peninsula and all the different things that affect that, from the weather to the predators. So lots of good stuff on this week's show. You're going to learn a lot, so make sure you stay tuned. I'm Jimmy Gratzinger, and it's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan out of doors. Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream, it's the love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Greenstone Farm Credit Services, making recreational land ownership possible across Michigan and northeast Wisconsin. Begin your land financing journey at one of Greenstone's 37 locations or visit greenstonefcs.com. By Vanguard, a global manufacturer based in Michigan featuring rifle scopes, binoculars, and spotting scopes with lifetime warranties. Vanguard supplies sporting optics and accessories for the outdoor enthusiast, online at vanguardworld.com. By Country Smokehouse, offering a variety of meat products. Country Smokehouse is located 3 miles south of I-69 on M53, just south of Imlay City. Country Smokehouse is a meat processor, a butcher, and a destination for sportsmen.
We all have one, that perfect spot, a special place we go to smooth out the ripples of the day. Our perfect spot is calling. Our perfect spot is Pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
A few weeks back, I had the good fortune of spending some time north of the bridge in the Crystal Falls area. The main goal of this trip was to learn more about an ongoing project in the UP involving the DNR, Mississippi State University, and Safari Club International. The Michigan Predator Prey Project is a 3-phase study designed to help us better understand the factors that influence deer survival in the UP.
What happened in the mid-1990s, there were 2 severe winters, consecutive winters in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And in the western Upper Peninsula in particular, it caused an apparent population decline of white-tailed deer. And that in and of itself was not unusual, but what was unusual is that the population didn't recover. And that was the initial impetus for this study, is to try to figure out what was the causation for the decline of the population and why the population did not recover. And there's multiple factors that can influence population declines of white-tailed deer. It could be disease, it could be predation, it could be changes in habitat. In some areas it can even be harvest pressure. And so what we had done, we being the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Mississippi State University, reviewed the information that was available and determined that most likely the probable causations or the factors that were most likely influencing the failure for this population to recover were predation, habitat, and also winter weather. Each of these factors, and more importantly how these factors can interact, can influence white-tailed deer populations, particularly survival.
In an effort to learn more about what all goes into the study, I decided to spend a day with the crew, which started with checking deer traps first thing in the morning. It's no secret that the last couple of winters in the UP have been brutal, and those consecutive winters have taken a toll on the deer herd in more ways than one.
At least in this area, the last 2 winters, as everyone knows, have been quite severe. 2 winters ago, what we saw was that many of the adult female deer made it through, but their fawns, we had a very high predation of white-tailed deer fawns. They were born small, they were born weak, and they were very vulnerable or susceptible to predation. So we had a very high mortality rate of fawns. And what we saw last winter was that even more severe in terms of a high percentage of our does did not even survive the winter to have fawns. And so not only did we have few fawns born, but very few does comparatively made it through the winter, very high mortality rate. And between those two consecutive winters of high doe mortality in one year and overall high fawn mortality in both years, that the population undoubtedly has declined. And what we also do is that each year that we're estimating mortality rates and survival of white-tailed deer, we're also estimating their abundance in the area that we study. And we haven't finalized the analysis of that information yet, but clearly the population, has certainly declined. We just don't know how much yet.
There's no doubt that the deer numbers are down throughout the UP, but you wouldn't know it by the success we were having in the deer traps. Our second deer trap of the day yielded exactly what we were looking for, an adult doe. Trapping does this time of year is essential in helping to better understand fawn mortality the following spring.
In this trap, we've just captured an adult female. She could be a yearling or older than that doe, and so she's been given an injection of immobilant drugs. And this is going to take about 12 to 15 minutes to fully induce her. So during this time, right now, we're just setting up a working area to keep her off the ground and keep her warm, get everything ready so that the process will flow as smoothly as possible. She's going to get a variety of samples taken from her to measure condition. We'll test for pregnancy, and we'll try to use all of this information to assess the condition of the deer herd throughout the winter, and also assess how her condition might affect subsequent fawn survival this summer. And in addition to that, this is going to allow us to hopefully find her fawn this summer and not only increase our chances of catching a good sample of fawns, but also it'll allow us to track the fawn survival and movements and mortality sources from day one that it's born instead of catching it a little bit later down the line.
The white-tailed deer that we're most interested in is the adult female white-tailed deer because they are the ones that are most likely pregnant. Fawns are usually not pregnant. Yearlings have a low pregnancy rate, but adult white-tailed deer in this area have about a 99% pregnancy rate. When we're looking for pregnancy in the female white-tailed deer, we're using ultrasound, and the ultrasound allows us to look for caruncles, which is the female part of the placenta that indicates that a deer is pregnant. A lot of the does that we capture are up there in age. Some of the oldest does that we know of in the U.S. in this area. A lot of that can be due to lack of hunter harvest and does often producing late in life for fawns. We've had does as old as 15, 16, 17 years old in the study area, which is some of the oldest that we've ever seen. Some of the other things we're doing is we're looking at rump fat because rump fat is a great indicator of body condition. And what that allows us to do is track deer condition throughout winter, which is another really important part of our study. We're looking at how winter weather affects white-tailed deer. So we can use the ultrasound to measure the depth of the rump fat and then compare that between individuals and also between weeks during the capture as winter goes on, especially in winters that are severe and late.
The deer traps we were checking today are called clover traps. They are pretty basic but prove to be very effective and are used because they cause a minimal amount of stress on the deer.
The device that we use for live capture of deer, this is called a clover trap. It's been around a long time, and the way that it works for a trigger mechanism, we have some fishing lines strung across the back. We just bait it with corn. We'll try to keep it pre-baited for a time before we actually open it so that animals become accustomed to entering and leaving the trap. Once the trigger is set, they'll feed their way to the back and hit this piece of fishing line, which is going to set off this rat trap, which is going to pull a cord. It's going to pull that lever and release the door and close it. Then you've got the deer.
After going 3 for 3 on the deer traps, I decided it was time to switch gears and meet up with the rest of the crew for a bear den check. Unlike the deer traps, this bear den was well off the beaten path, and after a couple miles snowmobile ride, we still had work to do to make it to the den. Today we would be checking in on a previously collared sow and hopefully a couple of yearlings.
One of our greatest concerns when we're working up black bears is just keeping them safe, making sure that the wildlife that we're handling is in good condition and they're not being injured in any way. So some of the things we're doing is we want to first make sure we can go into the den and immobilize the sow, and then if there's yearlings in the den as well, we'll try to mobilize them. And once immobilized, we can safely remove primarily the yearlings first. Once the yearlings are out, then we can maybe make the hole a little bit bigger and extract the sow. And things we're watching is their airways. We want to make sure that they're breathing consistently, making sure that no dirt's falling into their nose or their airway is not restricted in any way. And once we pull them out, what we were trying to do right away is get temperature, pulse, and respiration. Those are 3 things we try to monitor every 10 minutes while the animal is immobilized.
This den was indeed home to 2 yearlings and the previously collared sow. The main goal today was to swap out the batteries from her old collar and also take a few measurements and run a few tests while we were there.
With the bears, predominantly what we're doing in the wintertime is we're changing out their collar batteries. And when we change out those collars, we're using a GPS collar. That GPS collar allows us to track those individuals throughout the next summer and then again change the collars out the following year. When we're working up the black bear, some of the things that we're doing is we're taking biological samples such as hair, a tooth for aging, and blood to monitor stress levels in that bear. And then we're also doing morphometric measurements, whether that's body length or weight, right hind foot, ear length. These are things that are easy to collect on black bears, and we can use them to compare bears across the United States and also just within our own study area. Today we went out to check BB 163, a female who was caught this past summer. She weighed 105 pounds when she was caught this summer. During the den check today, she weighed 125 pounds, put on about 20 pounds of winter weight this year. And she had cubs this previous summer. So in the den, we found 2 yearlings with her. Tracking them in this area, we've seen that bears are a little bit lighter compared to the Escanaba area, the first phase of this study. We've also seen that this is a big area for cub production. We see a lot of females, a lot of breeding females, and it seems to have a very healthy bear population in the Crystal Falls area.
Many outdoorsmen don't realize that bears do in fact have a role in deer mortality, especially in the case of newborn fawns. This incredible footage from a collared bear shows the bear eating a leg from a freshly killed fawn. And although research shows that bears are not one of the primary predators of white-tailed deer, they certainly play a role. Life in the UP isn't easy for deer, especially fawns, but there's no one predator or winner or habitat change to blame, rather a culmination of factors that are keeping the population down.
Overall, when we're talking about white-tailed deer populations and factors that drive them, it's really not as simple as winter weather. It's not as simple as wolves killing all the deer. It's not as simple as changes in timber harvest. Typically, what influences these populations are a combination of these factors and how they interact with each other. For example, a severe winter can cause the doe to be in poorer condition. That in turn can cause the does to have fawns of a lower birth mass, so they weigh less, they're weaker, they're more vulnerable to predation. So it's a combination of these factors and how these factors interact that drive the overall dynamics of a deer herd. And so it's much more complex than we often think, and it's a combination of several factors at once and how they interplay. It's not any one single factor typically.
The work being done by those involved with the Predator-Prey project is very important to the future of deer hunting here in Michigan, especially in the Upper Peninsula. Hopefully their findings can help us better understand the relationship between the white-tailed deer and the 4 main predators of the UP, as well as shed some light on what we can do to help restore the deer population. Special thanks to everyone involved for letting me tag along on a very informative day here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula.
Well, I think I got my first Stormy Kromer hat about 15 years ago, and every time I drive through Ironwood, Michigan, which isn't super often, I always think I should go on a factory tour and see how these legendary hats are made. Well, I finally made that happen.
Amidst the snowbanks in downtown Ironwood, Michigan, you'll find the Stormy Kromer World Headquarters. The showroom and factory are here and open to the public and adoring Stormy Kromer fans year-round. Jordan and I made the 10-hour drive over to the westernmost corner of the UP to check out the birthplace of my favorite wintertime hats. While we were here, we had a chance to meet Bob Jacquart, the owner and CEO of Stormy Kromer and its parent company, Jacquart Fabric Products. Bob's daughter, Gina, is president of Stormy Kromer. Bob and Gina gave us a tour of the place and shared the incredible story of this amazing Michigan-made hat that so many of us love.
Well, historically, Stormy Kromer invented a hat with ear flaps, which is this, and the way it works is the ear flaps come down, and it was a problem in the railroad that he worked on where linemen couldn't cover his ears and have a brim to look out the train, and so this hat evolved, and he sold it at the railroad the next day, and then his wife started making them, and then a business began. And somewhere in the 30s, they moved from Kaukauna, Wisconsin, where it started, to Milwaukee. 64, he sold it. 68, they moved it. And so from 68 to now, until 2001 when we purchased it, they were made in Columbus, Wisconsin. And then our story is that our local dealer, the Hobby Wheel in Ironwood, called in an order, and they told him that they weren't making hats anymore. And so he found me in a coffee shop and said, "They quit making Stormy Kromer hats, you should do something about it." There's something about putting the hat on and you feeling like this is really the identifier of who I am as a human being. And what's really great about it is I can go to anybody with a hat on anywhere in this country, in fact anywhere in the world, and say nice hat and have a friend for life. Yeah. I mean, there's something about, it's pretty special. I don't know how many other clothing products really give exactly what Stormy Kromer had. I think that's what its greatest uniqueness is. It really is perfect that we ended up with it because we grew up with it. Nobody could really have understood exactly what this hat could do unless you grew up with it. We always say that if a sewing company in Miami would have purchased this business, they would not be having this much fun or understand what the value is here.
Many folks are truly grateful that the Jacquart family stepped in and saved the Stormy Kromer hat from extinction and kept it right here in the Midwest. They've kept the original hat true to its roots and added many different colors to pick from now, besides the traditional black and red and black plaid. After hearing the story of the Stormy Kromer, Gina took us into the warehouse and factory to see exactly how these beauties are put together.
So everything starts, you can come up here with the cutting of the fabric, which is what's happening here. So this end, they're getting the things ready, and then we'll walk down to the end where the cutting machine is. I'll let you take a look at this. So this is kind of what a cutting pattern looks like. Our software will take all the pieces and arrange them together to allow for the least amount of wasted fabric. So you can see, there's very little bits of waste in between those pieces.
The brims and the panels.
The brims and the panels, yep. So this piece right here is cutting, those are ear bands that are getting cut right now. You can see it drilled the hole for the eyelets. There's some brims here. Then you can see these folks and the folks over here are taking the pieces and kind of arranging them for the sewing team. We call this bundling, getting all the pieces together and in the right order. So these machines are sewing the the signature onto the ear band. So you can see that there's 6 machines going at once, and there's 4 ear bands on every machine.
While the whole hat making process is very much automated, there's still quite a bit of the Stormy Kromer that's a handcrafted work of art. These ladies are great at what they do.
The sewing line itself is very much what you would think of as a traditional assembly line type step. So each sewer does 1 or 2, maybe 2 steps, and then passes it on to the person behind them. It starts with putting the crown together, the 6 panels, which the hat is known for, and every panel is actually slightly different, which most people, I think, assume there are 6 identical triangles. That's the first step. They put the lining together in much the same way. The brim is assembled. There's a plastic insert that goes into the brim to keep its shape and give it a little body. So she starts on the inside of the hat, and she's going to put this strip on that we call the sweatband, and she's also going to secure in the start of some of the labels. So that's what she's doing here. Okay. And now that's the size label that's going in. Right. So our production runs really steadily all year long in order for us to have enough hats on the shelf going into November, December, January. So we're just, even today, we're making as many hats a day as we were in December. And we make, depending on the style, between 500 and 600 hats a day. And then they go into our warehouse and wait for someone to order them, and we just keep doing that all year long. Then there's various inside steps, the labels, the sweatband, attaching the brim to the hat, and the most important step, the last step, is putting on the earband. This is sewing the earband on, so this is the last sewing step. So she's getting that sewn on, and that's one of our traditional red-black ones. And then she's also going to tack on the tie. The tie didn't used to be attached.
They'd lose them.
And then we'd get so many calls, oh, I lost my tie, can you send me a new one? So we decided to just tack it down.
Yeah.
And they do get tied by a human.
Wow, look at this. She's got to tie every hat.
Yes.
Yeah, I stole the No, not really. They did when I first started working here. I'm getting used to it.
You probably tie bows in your sleep.
Yeah. Let's hold one up. It's a Stormy Kromer that was just born.
We also talk to a lot of people who come for our tour, which we offer daily here. And because they've seen so many of these shows on TV, like How It's Made or these fancy shows, I really think people expect there to be a giant machine that you just sort of stick some fabric in and you push a button and a hat comes out the other side. And they don't realize that these are mostly women sitting in a sewing machine that's kind of like a home sewing machine, and they're making these things essentially by hand. I've been back with the company 6 years, and when I came, there was like one women's hat and just a few apparel items. So really since then, we've been trying to expand to include women and expand to include younger audiences. Adding more apparel has been really fun. There's a lot of new things for this fall that I can't tell you about yet, but it's been great to just see people wearing our shirts and wearing our coats and mittens and just different accessories, and to expand the Kromer brand beyond just the beloved hat, but to make a whole apparel line of things.
The Jacquart family has taken a business that was closing its doors in 2001 and turned it into a huge success. They rescued the Stormy Kromer hat from being a thing of the past and kept it alive and well. The original hat, made in 1903, still looks very much the same, and those of us who can't get enough now have dozens of colors to choose from and can find matching mittens, coats, vests, and even can koozies. Stormy Kromer is a warm part of our outdoor heritage and alive and well here in Michigan's Out of Doors.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching Michigan Out of Doors this week. I'm standing here on the banks of the frozen Lake Michigan. It's hard to believe that in just a month or so, we're going to be chasing early season browns on this same water, and it's not too far beyond that. It's going to be turkey season, and it is just a fun time of the year to be a sportsman here in the great state of Michigan as the seasons kind of change. And speaking of turkey hunting, if you're going to be in the Grand Rapids area this weekend, the Ultimate Sport Show is going on. In fact, as you're watching this, if you're watching this on a Thursday night, we're taping Big Buck Night West right now. But this weekend, we'll be at the Ultimate Sport Show in Grand Rapids at the DeVos Place. And on Saturday, I'm going to be working the booth at the Bullies Game Calls booth. And we're going to have a special edition Michigan Out of Doors call that's going to be available. Just a few of those were made. Our friends at Bullies are doing that for us, and it should be a lot of fun. And if you get a chance, stop down, say hello. And if not, hopefully we'll see you right back here next week on your PBS station.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by By Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises of Munising, exploring Lake Superior's Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore with its sandstone cliffs, caves, waterfalls, and lighthouses. Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises on the web at picturedrocks.com. By Propane, Clean American Energy. Propane retailers promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas energy in homes, farms, and businesses across our great state. Learn more at usemichiganpropane.com. By Marvo Mineral, makers of Lucky Buck, deer management products including minerals to supplement deer diets year-round to improve health and antler growth. Michigan-made for over 18 years, Lucky Buck on the web at luckybuck.com. By Showspan, producing consumer shows that include the Ultimate Sports Show in Grand Rapids. Over 350 exhibitors, outdoor gear, boats, seminars, Lake Ultimate, and Big Buck Night. The Ultimate Sports Show at the DeVos Place in Grand Rapids. Closed captioning is provided by the Michigan Propane Gas Association, Clean American Energy. Propane realtors promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas to outdoor enthusiasts across our great state.
A dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my home state. I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout in a hidden stream. The white-tailed deer in the tall pine trees. I am a Michigan man. I am a Michigan man. Ask where I'm from and I'll show you my hands. Lord above, I love